Forward to this computer. Hey, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
Little anxiety. This there's just dealing with conflict within the kind of the community. Just some
Hmm.
people are kind of creating conflict, and
Is it ongoing from what you've told me before, or is it
yeah,
new?
it's sort of ongoing. But we're creating a policy, for addressing it. So, um, for
Well,
doing a
I
restorative
suppose that
circle.
this community is not immune to conflict,
You know,
as much as we want to say that that would never happen here.
Yeah, no, it can actually bring up even more
Hmm.
because you're kind of like, uh, with the empathy, you're kind of opening up, deeper feelings, and then it's like a bit like Pandora's box,
Yeah.
coming out. You got to have a process in place, and that's what we've been working on. With, did I send you our policy for dealing with
Yeah, I did
conflict?
see that.
Yeah, and that's so our agreement too, for us working together would be our agreement too, that if there's a conflict come up, that we're both willing to take part in a restorative empathy circle to
Yeah, I think
work through it.
it's so important to have that kind of thing um, clarified before diving too deep into a project.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that. Is that something we should both sign,
Yeah,
or
that's
just like how do you want to do
just
that?
agree to, yeah.
Mhm.
But maybe
Okay.
even eventually assigned. I don't know if
Well,
it's more like when the policy when somebody asks for it, and then you say, well, I'm not going to take part, and that's what's happened,
mhm.
before, is then you say, well, then we can't work together until we have that restorative circle. And that's the same thing with my brother and sister-in-law, that I said I can't have a relationship with you because I want an empathic relationship, and that means that we both are willing to listen to each other. So sort of our relationship is over, but I'm leaving the door open for a restorative empathy circle,
Mhm.
and I've had multiple ones with my sister-in-law and my brother, that she called for. But then you're dealing with people who have, real mental issues. My sister-in-law was, has been committed multiple times this year
Mhm.
for
Oh,
like a
wow.
week at a time. So you're dealing with people who have deep, psychological issues. But if they do take part in an empathy circle, I feel that makes it mutual. There's mutual listening within that process, and so it's the
Yeah.
minimum for holding an empathic space. I find, yeah,
I think that I've been thinking about this a lot lately. The internal dialogue that sometimes keeps us from being able to enter into an empathic space. And so I just wonder with your sister-in-law if she's just got so much going on inside of her own world that there's no room left for empathy the way she sees it. Obviously, there's always, maybe this isn't obvious, but I think there's always room for empathy.
mm,
Um, but maybe she doesn't feel like there is because of the turmoil that's going on inside of her.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
think that being listened to can be the healing,
I agree with that.
But then it's making it mutual. That we want to make it mutual, not just one way.
Right.
And it turned out, for quite a while, she was the biggest supporter in our family for
Hmm.
empathy circles. She really liked them. So there's sort of that
Well, I
aspect.
wonder what do you think has shifted?
Um, I think part of it is it wasn't incorporated into her family dynamics. My brother is very kind of withdraws. He just kind of introverts, and I think it could have helped if they had it in their family on a regular basis. I what I I had done empathy circles in the with their family, even with the kids, and the kids had liked it. But it has to be an ongoing process, I think,
Mhm. I
and
think so too.
you can't just do it once or twice. It's got to be, you have to sort of incorporate it into your sort of mindset,
Yeah.
it, and that's what I really liked about Allison's, talk, about the empathy circle is, she's the one that was at UC Berkeley. Uh, and she said at first it was really weird, but the more she did it, she started seeing the bigger picture of it and
Mhm.
how it's really affected her life and how she incorporates it, in her work and with her husband and so forth.
Hmm.
So it's that aspect of seeing how it, because it is kind of anxiety producing and all the conflict that kind of goes on, because there's just a lot, because some people in the circle were dealing with this other person who's kind of really lashes out. It is very judgmental, and it's a, if you kind of open yourself up to it, you just kind of feel that anxiety underneath, and how do you kind of hold that? And for me it's like, well, if in the empathy circle at least there's a structure to hold that anxiety. I know I will listen to the person and I will reflect them, and then they'll have to reflect and listen to me, so that creates something besides just all out war,
Mhm.
all out judging, counter, closing yourself off and just hitting back, and until you kind of wear each other out. So yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, let's see, I think it was last like Thursday or something like that. No, actually it was last Sunday. So not 2 days ago, but a week before that. Two of my kids were in a massive argument. And it was one of those things where I wasn't there to see who hurt whom.
Hmm.
And so they were both coming to me, telling me all of their side and, like belittling each other, like, that didn't happen. You're so dumb, continuing. Like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Like, how could you possibly have thought that that's what happened? Because that's not what happened. I was like, empathy circle. Oh, we don't want to do an empathy circle. I'm like, we're not going back to play until you do an empathy circle. And I found that it was like you're saying, it's something that has to be, it has to be, you have to teach the framework before you have conflict. You have to have that as a tool in your tool belt to be able to grab for that. Or when you're in conflict, people are just like, what is this? Why would we do this? But we were able to get through. I mean, it took longer than they wanted to because they just wanted to choke each other and have the other person be dead and then they would win, right? Like that was what
Right.
they wanted. Obviously, that would not have been a positive outcome. But they were not in a place where they were able to be reflective to each other. So I was the role of the reflective listener. And I said, I'm hearing you say this. I'm hearing you say this. You feel that this is what happened. This is what you saw. And the other one kept trying to jump in. I said, it's going to be your turn in as soon as we're done with this part, it will be your turn. And I'm going to give you equal time. And so it actually ended up being incredible, like how well I was able to understand both sides. Because in the past, it's been like I have jumped to conclusions about what actually happened. I mean, somebody accidentally stepped on somebody else, and then like they were playing on the trampoline, somebody jumped and landed on the other person, and then they, bumped into somebody else, and it was something that was nobody's fault. It was just an accident, but they were all really, really upset about it because then it escalated from there. So being able to disentangle, okay, this is your perspective, this is your perspective, and validate both sides of it was really great. And I just wanted to share that it's been something that
Beautiful.
it's been like transformative for my family. So
Yeah, there's another part. Did you have the last part is like, well, what do we do now? What's the agreement on what we do now? You can add that for conflict. So you
Yeah,
actually
I
have
think
a,
I should do that next time.
yeah.
I mean, we had a conclusion. I'm trying to think back of what I said, but it was, I think the main takeaway was this was an accident. Nobody was at fault. What was a problem was how you responded to each other. So next time, we're not going to lash out at each other. We're going to try and understand what happened before we explode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and just the more that I do that with them, I think the more that they'll be able to internalize it. But it's like flexing a muscle that you don't have, right? Like trying to flex their little baby muscles. Like they don't have those muscles yet. And so we have to build those muscles in order for them to be able to use that skill in the future on their own.
if I would have learned that skill at that age, my life would be different, So,
Yeah. And I would
yeah.
really like not only my own family, but all families to be able to learn that. I think it's a big deal. It's very, very important because I mean, if you can learn those skills when you're young, then we don't end up having to try and repair all of the
Hmm.
problems that were created when people were young. That's why I think developmental psychology is so important because we're talking about how do you develop, you know, good coping mechanisms and detrimental thought patterns over time, and how do we address the problem before it gets out of control.
Yeah, it's great to see you applying it like that. That's really excited about that.
Yeah, it makes me happy. It makes me really happy. And I have to say, each one of us is on a journey with this. And my journey, when I experienced the first empathy circle, it didn't transform me, but it's been going through the training and using it with my
Hmm.
family that has been where I've started to see why it's so beneficial. And so that makes me think about research because
Hmm.
everything leads to that for me. Um, so my plan, as it currently stands, is to have one empathy circle with each set of participants. Looking back at Allison Jane's plan, it was, I think, over 6 weeks. Is that right? To see, like, so they would have the same group meeting together once a week for 6 weeks,
I remember. Yeah.
and then see what the changes over that longer period of time. So that's something that we should discuss because there is a certain amount of benefit after one empathy circle, and there's obviously going to be a multiplicative effect over a longer period of time. But
Yes.
research is expensive, and it's, not only do you have to pay the participants, you also have to pay like research assistants who are going to help with data collection and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just curious if, like, as we think about being able to fund a study, what are the priorities? And if it is a priority to do a longer study, then we need to approach it differently. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, what do you
Okay.
think would be the most beneficial?
So I created this just website, sort of a mini website to take notes and for the research. Oh, did I? I didn't put that. I think I put it in the AI. I didn't put it in the chat. So I just do
That's
that.
helpful for the AI though.
Yeah. Um, we were looking at the hypothesis, and so I had mentioned, I was just thinking about, I put it out there, got a lot of feedback from,
Yeah,
some
that was
different
great.
people in the group, but I thought that the thing that I that kind of spoke more to me was looking at bridging political and social divides.
Hmm.
So you can see, from your example with, your kids is you could see them as a Republican and Democrat, right? In the same way, it's kind of the same thing that's going on at a national level,
Yeah.
and to look at how the empathy circle can bridge polarization. So in terms of funding, if we're looking at like, well, how does it, the empathy circle help with self-awareness? I mean, there's a certain interest level in that, but if we're looking at something about bridging political divides, it's a big need, and there's in
Yeah,
terms
and
of.
I think that my reason for wanting to look at self-awareness as well as the other components of bridging the divide and reducing polarization is you need self-awareness in order to bridge a divide. Because
Mhm.
like I was saying, and what you were saying with your sister-in-law, if you can't get out of your own head, then you never hear what the other person is saying.
Mhm.
So I think that shouldn't be the only hypothesis, but I do think that that's an important component of the overall
Mhm.
structure of the study.
Yeah, so it's a component of bridging divides that people can hear themselves and feel that their self-awareness well, with the empathy circle, someone's listening to you, which increases your
Mhm.
self-awareness too. So
I think that's where it comes from,
yeah, it
is having to
helps.
slow yourself down for them to repeat back to you. And then did I communicate what I'm actually thinking and what I'm feeling? And when they reflect it back, that helps you to understand yourself.
Yeah, and what is the effect on bridging polarization too? Well, the reason, so with polarization, then I had bridging organizations. So we would be addressing something that has real political um, concern. Like there's so much concern now about the political polarization. And
Yeah.
there's bridging organizations, and I put a list down like Braver Angels. So there's a group that they actually hold left, right, sort of dialogue. There's a whole network, the
You know
Listen
what?
First.
I sorry to interrupt, but I'm just thinking that there's a friend of mine who I do quite a bit of research with. I'm pretty sure that she does civic dialogue with Braver Angels.
Okay. And there's a whole group. There's Listen First is a network of organizations that do bridging work.
Hmm.
There's the Global Listening Movement. There's Bridge USA, which is a student-led group. So they're on campus and they do bridging work. And they
Interesting.
started at UC Berkeley actually.
I don't
And
think I've seen or heard of that one here at my university. I wonder if I could start it
oh yeah,
in all my free time.
and then there's a bunch of other organizations, Turning Point USA. So that
Hmm.
was and then when they were at Berkeley, there was I don't know if you saw in the media, there was some little bit of conflict there, police arrests and stuff like that. But I listened to some of their talks, and they were talking about listening to the other side, not being, don't be like the other side, but be willing to listen. So
Hmm.
there's organizations like that that we could maybe tap into and say, do you have people that would be willing to take part in this study?
Oh, that would be great.
And the
That's a
same with
great idea.
The Bridge USA and Braver Angels are all organizations that might say, hey, yeah, we'd be interested in supporting a study. And then so there's a whole list of other ones. I mean, some other ones too that are on that list. So these would be organizations that we could, contact and actually, find participants, especially the Bridge USA, if we wanted to get to, students, that would take part. A lot of times they have more time, or even, Braver Angels. So anyway, those are just some thoughts, and
Yeah.
then it's something too because once the study is over, it's like how do we get attention for it too? We want to make a bit of a splash, and
Hmm.
there was that one study about college students. Empathy is lower with college students. I can't. Uh, and she got a lot of mileage out of that. It's like it's written up in a lot of the papers in the new. What
Hmm.
happens is a study comes out, and then the papers write about it. You send it out to the newspapers, and then they make sort of a more of a you know lay person version of it and explain it in lay terms. So you get publicity. So the more publicity too, it helps the research as well.
Right.
And so you
Right.
want.
And my thought is, why do any of this if we can't share it with the broader population? I mean, the whole point of doing this kind of research is to help lessen the divide in our country right now.
Yeah.
So I absolutely am fully on board with that.
Okay. And then farther down that page there is different types of dialogue too. So some types of dialogue practices. So there's the empathy circle at the bottom of the page. There's unstructured dialogue. Just to think in terms of what are structures that people have for group dialogue. There's
Yeah.
debate. There's basic dialogue participation workshop. I think that's the one for um, Bridge USA has their own process. I'm not sure how that
Hmm.
process works. There's living room dialogue conversation. So there's they do left right. Well, they do some left right, but they have just general dialogue process, and their process is very structured in terms of here's a question, everybody answers it. Here's another question, everybody answers it. Here's another question, everybody answers it, and then you have a facilitator, for example. And I had taken part in one, and what happened is a conflict started,
Hmm.
And that process doesn't really hold conflict,
Mhm.
because people just start, talking over each other, get
Yeah.
angry. And then I said, well, we have this empathy circle process. And then the next day we held an empathy circle and everybody kind of really liked it.
That's
So,
cool.
and then there's uh, the International Listening Association. They have listening circles, and I was kind of researching what their structure is, and they're using talking stick. So the talking stick. There's a
Hmm.
group. You have a talking stick, and you pass that around, and everybody gets a chance to speak. You've probably heard of the talking stick
Yeah.
process. So, and I had done that at Occupy Wall Street in Berkeley. I didn't had that was 2011, so I wasn't. I did done a lot of workshops where they used active listening, but we did facilitate a talking stick, circle, and it was one person, one woman there. She was very outspoken in that community. People didn't like her, so somebody came and slashed her tent at night with a knife, and then I think they said that somebody exposed themselves or something too. And so she was in kind of a traumatic state. And then we
Hmm.
had her in the talking circle, but she was also very, outspoken. So she spent it like, 20 minutes, or more just talking right in the talking circle. So and then there's a bunch of other people in the circle that want to speak too. So I thought this doesn't really work. The talking.
Yeah.
So we need a different process. And then I started getting the idea for an empathy circle, which is, well, small groups. So we have the entire encampment, which is maybe 200 people camped out there. If they would all have small circles using active listening, with each other, and then they would maybe go for an hour or two, and then they would all get up and change,
Oh, that's
groups,
great.
and then so all day long you're having talking circles. So so anyway, it was I was starting to get the idea for the empathy circle at that point.
Hmm.
It didn't develop it until later, because they closed the encampment, so I didn't really get to get it together. So anyway, it's comparing the empathy circle to other practices. Just at least that we conceptually, are sort of
Right.
aware
I'm
of other
wondering,
practices.
I'm wondering in terms of like writing up a study, if we would just like theoretically talk about the differences, or I mean, again, that overcomplicates things. When every time you add in a new variable
Hmm.
or a new condition, like, okay, now we're going to do this group, so we'll, instead of having a control group and an experimental group, now we have like 7 groups.
Yeah.
Then we have to have more people. Um, but I think in terms of, I mean, I want to do that. I want to do that in the future. But I
Yeah.
think for the first study, we should just talk about it conceptually, like talk about the differences. I mean, my dissertation can be 600 pages if I want it to be. I don't want it to be, just for the record, but uh, but that's the realm of like the background research. With any good study, you have to make sure that you're really well grounded in what has already been done and what are the alternatives. And so then we would build from there and say, we're just going to
Hmm.
compare
Yeah.
the empathy circle to an unstructured
Yeah.
dialogue.
Yeah, and
Um,
keeping it simple, because you saw that's what happened with Allison's study. I
right.
don't know if you. It was just so many questions and so much. Yeah, it was. It was. I think it was just too complicated.
Well,
It was.
and really what would have ended up happening with that study is it would no longer be an empathy circle.
Yeah.
And because you're changing it so much by adding in so many stops. So that's something we need to consider as well. Like we've talked about it being after, getting some really quick measures after each speaker. I almost wonder if it has to be after each round. And you can kind of just get the temperature of the group after each round, and like how well, when you were speaking during this round, how well did you feel like your active listener was understanding what you were
Hmm.
saying, etc. So we can still get an overall feel, but it won't be um, as like clunky,
Mhm.
and like breaking it up too much.
Yeah, I wonder. I might could always do some tests. I'm not quite sure how the because it there is no rule that you have to everybody has to speak first. One round. You can somebody could
Mm.
be left out of a round. Uh, you know, in the sense that
Mhm.
somebody might speak twice before somebody spoke once. So it's up to the listener. No, it's up to the speaker to choose their
Yeah,
listener.
that's true.
So there's that issue. It might be just maybe we can do some tests to
Yeah,
see what the effect is. I'm not sure either.
because I am just concerned that if you take measures too often, that it no longer feels like an authentic
Yeah,
empathy.
that'd be my concern
And
too.
if we're looking at the empathy circle as the practice to see how effective it is, and we change it in the process of studying it, we are no longer studying the empathy circle.
Yeah.
So I just want to be really careful about how much we ask. Just like you were saying with Allison's study, it just became too much.
hmm Did you get the email? She did reply.
Yeah, so I responded to her. I
Okay.
actually didn't see her response until today because I was preparing to meet with you, and I was like, oh, I wonder if she's ever responded. And just in all of the emails, most of it is junk that goes to that email address. I wonder if I should start communicating with you through my BYU email address, just
Mm-hmm.
because it's easier for me to keep track of stuff in there because I don't have all of the junk that
Mm-hmm.
goes there. So that actually would probably be helpful. But now your entire, like, all of the other like facilitator training people, like they all have my Gmail. So it
Mm-hmm.
might just be
Yeah.
confusing.
Well, she just replied yesterday, I think.
Okay. So yeah, but I hadn't seen it until I sifted back through and searched your name. And that's how I was able to find it that she had responded as well. So yeah, I gave her some times that I can meet over the next couple of
Oh,
weeks.
good. Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think it'll be good to talk to her about it. So I met with Greg Deepow last week, and he said that he's doing a collaborative project with her right now.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And so that's fun. Also, that reminds me, Daryl Cameron invited me to speak at the Moral Decision Making Consortium on Thursday.
Oh, great.
So if you are available, it's going to be at 10 o'clock Mountain Time, so 9 o'clock your time.
Mm. Can you
And I
send
don't
me
have,
the link to
yeah,
it?
I don't have the details yet for the link or
Okay.
anything, but he's going to send it out to his whole list of people
What
who
are you
are
going to
part of his
speak about?
consortium. Empathy. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I was thinking. Just might be fun. No, but I'm going to be talking about it's a little bit, there's a lot. So basically just the self, other, and how we interact with each other kind of from a philosophical level. Just kind of some of what I've shared before with you, but then also introducing my model of like you can stay firm and you can hold on to who you are and what matters to you at the same time as empathizing with another person. Because the way that we conceptualize it and measure it, it doesn't make it clear currently like what it is we're even asking people to do when we're asking them to empathize. Um, and so, like for example, the two overlapping circles, like the inclusion of the other in the self, it's like, well, what does that even mean? And so I'm kind of digging into that and pulling it apart. Like if you have two overlapping circles for this just represents all of me and this represents all of you, and I think that we overlap significantly, maybe I am assuming too much about how much of you I am even capable of knowing. So kind of getting into some Levinas where like the other is infinite and ungraspable. Um, and then I'm just going to share a little bit of some of the research that we've been doing that kind of illustrates some of these ideas.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's going to be fun.
Good. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And I want to have a little bit of a
Enjoyed your
discussion. Oh, sorry.
I just enjoyed your presentation at the Empathy Summit.
Oh,
Yeah,
tend you.
yeah. Kind
Yeah,
of the
that was,
personal part as well as the insights. Yeah, it's really interesting.
yeah, I guess I haven't, I tend to prefer to get a little bit personal and vulnerable
Hmm.
when I speak. So it's been a bit of a shift and a challenge for me going into more like technical speaking and technical writing. It's just, it takes all of the the heart out of life, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I like to speak to more of a lay audience because you can talk about why things matter to you. And
Mhm.
I felt like that was an important thing to share.
Great.
But anyway, so I'm gonna meet with Allison. I'm gonna run my ideas by Greg as well. He said he's willing to give me some feedback on the plan. Um, After this week, hopefully I'll be able to um, schedule a meeting with Daryl and maybe I can run it by him. I know that you said that you could reach out to some people and we could run the plan by some other researchers as well.
Yeah, I put a link. I started putting groups that could be contacted,
Yeah.
for support. So there's William Miller. His book would be really good if you get a chance to read
Mm-hmm.
that. Listening Well. In fact, I think
Mm-hmm.
he would be supportive because he was in that book trying to address the polarization. And he's just very practical. He's the one developer of motivational interviewing
Right. Yeah,
practice.
yeah, yeah. I really do need to get that book. I'm gonna, before
It's
I
very,
forget,
it's
I'm gonna get on
small. It's cheap. It's quick read, but it's just very practical. In
it.
fact, it's
Okay.
one of the best empathy books I think because it's so practical.
I
Yes.
like practicality.
Yeah. And then there's Marco Iacoboni.
Mhm.
He has a lab in UCLA. Graham Bodie, he's professor of media communications, and he's a really kind of an expert on listening. And so anyway, there's a bunch of other. I'm just kind of adding people as I think about them that we could always just, if we have something to, you can just run it by them just to get their thoughts.
I love it.
Advisory, I guess, advisory board or something.
Yeah, gosh, I agree with you so wholeheartedly that we really do need to address polarization because that is so hot right now. And
Hmm.
not in hot right now in like, ooh, this is like the hot new thing, but like emotions are hot right
Hmm.
now. And we have to actively work against it. I went to a talk on last week. I don't know if you can see this. Um,
Hmm.
it says divided states of America. So they asked a nationally representative sample of Americans, and
Hmm.
80% of people say that the United States is divided, and only 19% said that we're united.
Hmm.
That's very, very concerning and very relevant right now. So I don't know where he got those statistics from. I actually reached out to him to ask where he got those stats because I'd love to cite that. Because that's why we need to address this right now.
Mm. Well, that's
Just
great. Hmm.
it's not just about interpersonal within families. That great. That's obviously this applies there too, but the problem right now that needs to be fixed is this polarization. And
Yeah. So
so,
as if, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just sorry. I want to work with some political science people here at BYU, and there's somebody at Duke. They have created what's called the democratic reciprocity scale. And so, since I'm going to be validating my own scale, which actually is kind of similar to theirs, I want to work together with them. So I just need to get it on the calendar with them to set up a meeting. Because I think that that's something that political scientists are thinking about. Obviously, it's a big deal to them right now. And so this isn't just the realm of empathy researchers. This is the realm that really kind of crosses interdisciplinary divides as well.
Mm.
What were you going to
Okay.
say?
Um, well, so you, in terms of a hypothesis, it's about polarization that the doing the empathy circle. I mean, the hypothesis is that it'll bridge the divide. Empathy circles will help bridge the divide.
Yeah.
And
And
is
the difficult thing is how do you operationalize that?
Mhm.
And so with any big study that I've seen, they have lots of hypotheses. And so you can have like, I mean, from this one study, we could have, I was thinking about it this morning, we could get like 6 papers out of this. Like,
Mhm.
yes, it would be one dissertation, but then in terms of like submitting it to journals, this would be a series of publications
Mm-hmm.
that we would get out of this. And so, we could even in one publication, we could be looking at self-awareness as one hypothesis, right? Political polarization as another paper that's standalone. Let me just share with you. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, let me give you a co-host.
Because I want to show you this scale.
Okay, you should have co-host now.
Okay, so the important thing with any hypothesis is how do we measure it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we, that's why I wanted to get your thoughts on what you expect to come out of it, because now I can take what you and the other board members shared as far as expectations of what good could come out of the empathy circle, and go to the literature and figure out how do you actually measure that and what's the best way to measure it. So psychometrics is an important part of this. Oops. Okay, so here is, you see this 4.4 democratic reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Can
is
you
the scale
zoom
that
in a bit? Is it possible to zoom in to?
Is that better?
Okay, yeah, that helps. Mm-hmm. Democratic reciprocity questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's sort of a pre-question before people would take part in an empathy circle.
Yes. So we would do that before and after. And we would want, obviously, okay, scientifically speaking, we don't want any outcomes, but in terms of seeing how effective the empathy circle is, the expectation and our desire would be that they would answer these questions differently after the empathy circle than they did before. Mm-hmm. Because if they can come into it, like let's say that somebody says, yeah, I really have a hard time seeing things from another person's point of view, and I don't respect their opinion, right? So let's say that's kind of the profile of this person before, where they're just really closed. Then they go through the empathy circle and we give them these same questions and they think about it and they're like, you know what? I can see how it's possible to respect the other person's opinions. And I can see the value of trying to see it from another person's perspective. So that, again, like I said, these are the questions of this specific scale. It has not been psychometrically validated,
which is what does that mean? Psychometric.
It's a process that I have to go through with my scale to. It's okay. So you have to see, are all of these questions on this scale actually getting at what I think they're getting at? So like we could have, it looks like they're getting at democratic reciprocity, right? Because that's the way it's titled. Like that's the name of the scale. So we kind of have somewhat of like, they call it face validity, where you look at the questions and it's like, okay, I can kind of tell what that's measuring. But you have to scientifically validate that to make sure that it's actually doing what you think it's doing. Mm-hmm. So what we would do is we would see, first of all, do these questions cluster together? Like, do they highly correlate with each other? So for example, if somebody answers really highly, so it's like on a 1 to 7 scale, for example. So let's say I find it difficult to see things from the point of view of another person who disagrees with me. That would be reverse scored. So it would be on a scale of 1 to 7. And like one is the same as 1 equals 7. So you would just like switch everything around. Okay. So because this is a negatively worded question, we would have to switch it. So if a person rates themselves as a 1 on this and a 7 on this one, when we reverse score that, that means that those two would be highly correlated with each other. Mm-hmm. And so we would want to first see, do all of the questions highly correlate with each other? The second thing we would want to do is see if there's like an underlying structure to it. Like, are there 2 questions that kind of are getting at one thing and then 2 questions that are kind of getting at something different? So we would want to understand the scale, like on the internal structure of the scale first. And then we would also want to use like a variety of other scales to see, is this actually getting at what we think it's getting at? Because we can say, yeah, obviously this is getting at something that's important to us. But if it doesn't highly correlate with other scales that have been psychometrically validated, then we would have to like wonder, is this a scale that we can trust? Like,
Hmm.
should we use this scale? So in psychology, they're much more interested in making sure we're doing our measurement properly than in some of the other social sciences, which is why this one has not been psychometrically validated, because it's from political science. So that was a long way of answering a question. The reason I'm even saying that is because I have to do that first
Hmm. Right.
before I can do all of the other stuff.
Hmm.
And so I'm starting that next semester. So in January, I'm going to be doing this validation study. And I just heard yesterday it can take 1 to 2 semesters, which might mean that we, like, depending on how in depth we want to go with this, it might mean that we're not ready to use these scales until like August. So that's just
Hmm.
something that I'm trying to work through timeline wise, because I do feel like it's important to validate my scale before going into the dissertation, because I'm just not a super fan of the other validated scales that are out there.
Hmm.
So that is
And
that's
you're
kind
taking
of,
a class. You're saying you're taking some classes on this, so you're just kind of
yeah.
building your understanding of how all the measurements work and the whole dynamics of and pros and cons and issues related to measuring.
Yeah, because really there's a lot of research out there that is based on faulty measurement. And so there are conclusions that are drawn from
Hmm.
studies. But
Yeah.
then if you dig into the weeds of it, it's like, oh my gosh, we really can't put any trust in those findings
Hmm.
because they didn't do a good job of measuring it.
Yeah, we talked about that with all different empathy scales that are kind of all over the place. And
Yeah, they're all over the place and they're really not getting at the same thing that we're talking about.
hmm.
And I, preaching to the choir again, but the questions on this scale seem to be more of what we're interested in
Yeah.
rather than, do I share the emotions of somebody else, right? Like, or do I feel bad for people when they're hurt? Like that's not really what we're interested in. Whereas we're interested in knowing if people are willing and able to slow it down and listen to somebody else and try to understand where they're coming from. And
Yeah.
so there are some scales like the interpersonal reactivity index. There is the perspective taking subscale that's pretty good for that, but it's not it's not as deliberate as I would like it to be.
Hmm.
And I like this scale and I like the one that I'm creating because it forces you to have some self-awareness. In order for somebody to rate highly on that scale, on my scale, it's an emotionally intelligent person and I think that's really important in an empathy circle, is to have self-awareness going into it, be able to regulate yourself so that you don't jump in and cut somebody off when it's their turn to speak, and the ability to understand and communicate. Like those are the 4 aspects of emotional intelligence, and it's at play in every single empathy circle. Um, so I think it's important to
Hmm.
to look at it from more of an emotionally intelligent empathy perspective than just like how reactive are you, because that's
I
kind
wonder if
of
we could
the
do a
opposite.
couple tests too. If we could just do an empathy circle with 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and just record it, and then we'd have something to look at too
Yeah.
to say how does this what's happening here, what could be measured, or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with any study that we do, we always try to do a pilot
Hmm. A
study
pilot. Uh-huh.
first.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And so I would definitely want to do that. And the good news is we can do that. We can even do several pilots before my scale is validated. We can even just use that as part of our exploratory process. Like we can use my scale, even though it won't be validated by then, and just see like what are the outcomes um, on that and several other measures that we're interested in. Um, by the way, I do have to leave at probably, oh, you know what? Let me just double check. I'm supposed to meet with Garrett Cardin I think at noon. But he hasn't responded to say if it was 12 or 12:15. So I might need to leave in a few minutes to because it's on the other side of campus. Um, so do you have any like final things that you want to discuss before, like in terms of the research, designing it, what we want to measure, how we want to recruit, any of that kind of stuff?
Um, yeah, I guess just get on the same page. I didn't know if that's what, doing the bridging was something that you were interested in or not. So I'm hearing that you are. So we got that kind of as a
Yeah.
first step. And
I mean, I don't know if you recall, but in like March, I did a whole literature review of empathy in the political spectrum.
mhm,
And so all a lot of the background research that I have done is already politically focused.
mhm,
And so I would have to start from scratch if it was a different kind of context. And so I would love to just plug in and use what I've already done.
okay.
Um, and especially because this is such a big problem right now.
Yeah. I think it could get a lot of attention and
Mhm.
support, in terms of, financial support too, saying, hey, this is we're
Yeah,
actually
I
trying
agree
to
with you.
find some
And I just,
solutions.
again, I've, right. I don't know if I have adequately express my gratitude to you for helping me plug into your community with this as well, because I feel like this is I'm not on my own to just do
Hmm.
some random study by myself. I feel very supported and I really appreciate you.
Oh, good. Yeah, I really enjoy. I think it's just your enthusiasm, just having that I don't know, scientific mind to apply to the empathy circle. I'm really excited about that, and
Yeah, I'm
especially
excited
the
about it too.
personal part too, that you're applying it to your life and you kind of
Mhm.
see the benefits. It's just not an abstract, thing to be studied. It's like I think that's the important part is to actually do it and to
Right.
experience it and see, this is really making a difference. This is contributing,
Yeah.
to people's well-being. So I think that that's really great.
I think one final thought on that. With any science, we want to make sure that we are completely okay with whatever the findings are.
Mm-hmm.
If the hypothesis is very much rooted in our personal experience, obviously that's why we have the hypotheses that we do, is because we have actually experienced that, we've seen those benefits, and so we have very clear reasons why we have those hypotheses. However, it might not be exactly what we expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
got to be
something that's
open.
problematic, and I won't share any names on this, but I've recently heard of somebody who had a lot writing on the outcomes of the study, and had already reached out to media, um, and the outcomes were not necessarily what they expected.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's kind of some like backpedaling now. And so we have to be careful, um, to make sure that we do the science properly. And like my role is going to have to be just dispassionate. Like I want it to go the way that we want it to go, but when I'm running statistics, I have to just leave my biases out of it. And by biases, I mean my what I want to see come out of this, right? Because there might be some of these things that the study itself doesn't validate, right? Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, if for some reason it's not substantiated, and then we can discuss why that might be. That's part of writing up the scientific findings, is like interpreting it. Like, so what for the second year project, like thesis thing that I just submitted, and passed, there were some of the findings that were not what I expected, and so I had to report the finding exactly as they were. But then in my discussion section, I like really dug into it to try and figure out why it wasn't
Yeah.
what I expected.
I totally
Um,
support that. And I see that the inquiry itself is of benefit. Just having that inquiry, no matter what the outcome is the
yeah,
inquiry, I think is helpful. I did want to put in the link there. Pro, is that in the chat? Did you see that?
pro-life choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that top one was I had done a series of left right, tried to like it
Mm,
was quite a while ago. So could kind of watch that one if you're wanting a sample of
that's a great idea.
a conflict one, and I could even run it through now that we have AI. Could have AI kind of evaluate it, but um,
I, gosh, if I, and maybe I will get a job at a university where I'll have just so much funding and I can just keep doing studies. But right now I don't have that like luxury. But what I would like to do, even before doing a full study of the empathy circle, is go through and actually qualitatively analyze all of the empathy circles that you have posted online. Because even though we wouldn't be able to do pre and post, we could actually have people watching it and like look at facial expressions,
mm,
look at how people's body language is shifting throughout the course of the interaction. I think all of that is really valuable, and it's like it's all there. It's all readily available.
that's why I recorded. I loved recording everything because of you don't know at the time, but now with AI, I mean the AI is going to be scanning all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, every video is going to be run through AI just automatically and transcribed, and
It's amazing.
so it's a body of work that's out there for looking at, like you're talking about.
Yeah, and there's it's a wealth of information that we could really dig in and analyze it, so then it wouldn't just be anecdotal. It would be, well, this is how we scientifically looked at it, and we
Hmm.
can substantiate what you and your community and myself have all been seeing anecdotally have been the positive outcomes. It
Yeah.
really is crazy that nobody has scientifically studied
Yeah,
this.
it's weird. It was just that one attempt that I got.
Well, this is our day.
Yeah, this is. So it's just thinking in terms of, what does that look like? The idea to do a circle, is it, bring two Democrats, two Republicans together, kind of imagining what that would look like. What is the question, topic question?
Yeah, because
Uh, uh,
that's something I don't know
mhm,
yet. I mean, I like the structure of two Democrats, two Republicans, but then what do they talk about? Like, what is the
mhm,
prompt? Is it something as simple as, why have you chosen the political party that you subscribe to?
mhm,
And then that can just lead into some interesting dialogue. It could be as simple as that, or it could be something more specific, like, what are your thoughts on DEI initiatives, which is what I was originally going to do. But that's kind of passe now, right? It's not like the
yeah,
hot topic right now. So just keeping it a little bit more general, and then people can dig into things that are more like salient at the moment, whatever
yeah,
the
hmm,
timeline ends up being, whatever is on their mind politically
yeah,
is what they'll end up talking about.
hmm, yeah.
Okay, well, I've got to go so I can head across campus. I will see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
Let
have a
me know
good
how
Thanksgiving.
those things. What? Oh,
Have a great
Thanksgiving. You too.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's right. It's next week.
Thanksgiving, what a wonderful time for empathy circles, right?
Yeah, oh, very much so. All right.
Good luck if you're
See you.
getting together with family.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.